Hey people, this is Fernando doing another video for the Modern Survivalist, and in this case the video is a request that I got from someone in YouTube in the comment section in my Spanish channel, and it goes something like this. Hi Fer, as always, thanks for your videos. If you have time, it would be nice to see a video on the minimal skills so as to use a revolver in combat in the context of not being instructors and not having the training. How would I defend myself if I have a 6-inch python? Yeah, very specific, and I haven't learned a thing, and I'm going against burglars with a Glock. Would be valuable. Thank you very much. Well, kind of weird request, but a few things here. First of all, a revolver is not a horrible way, a horrible tool for defending yourself. And this idea of what if Python goes against a Glock as if they were Pokemons. That's not the thing. These are tools, and it's more about how you use them than anything else. And regarding that, before I forget, get yourself firearms training. I know the question is specifically about what is it if I don't have that training, but I have to insist. The most important thing for you to do is get qualified firearms training by a good instructor, not just any nutcracker. No, someone with a solid reputation in your community. That's the kind of instructor you want. Just any fool pretending to be an instructor is not what you want. You may end up doing more harm than good by getting taught things that are not correct. Qualified instructor, spend the money. Oh, but it's $500. Yeah, sure, you can buy yourself a new gun with that money. But believe me, it's a lot better to have just one gun and have firearms training from a qualified instructor than having two guns and not knowing how to use them. Having said that, if the case is that you don't have training and you're not planning on spending the $400, $500 that you need so as to know how to use a gun properly based on the teachings from a qualified instructor, I would suggest Street Survival Skills. Yes, it is my book where I do explain some of these basics that I have learned in different classes in different countries, and I explain that because the same basics apply. How you draw a gun, how you shoot a gun, and the rest of how you manipulate your firearm and the basics that you learn in any of these classes by a good instructor are still the same. And yeah, you can do these on your own. You can practice these things. It's $20, $25 in Amazon, depending on the discount going on at the moment. But if you can get from a good instructor, that's always going to be a lot better and a lot more better investment than just buying yet another gun that you probably don't even need. It's better to just have one. Having said that, usually the instructors will teach you how to use a semi-automatic pistol, because people that want to learn how to defend themselves with a firearm, specifically with a handgun, they will gravitate towards semi-automatics, which is the standard to go by today for law enforcement and military. There is a reason for that. This is just better. It doesn't mean that this is not good enough. It just means that this will give you the more amount of capabilities, the more amount of tools in terms of capacity, in terms of how light it is, in terms of how quick it is to reload. This is why this is being used today. I've been in classes where guys had 1911s, and those were still dated. They were taking longer, they were reloading, they just needed to reload more often, and the gun itself was a little bit sharper around the corners, and it's just an older model, and it's not the same thing as a more modern Glock, which is what you find in most cases, either Glock or something very similar. There are classes out there for revolvers, so I would suggest going with that. Find yourself a good instructor that happens to teach a class on revolvers. It's not going to be very often. It's going to be every once in a while because there's just not the market for that. But is it enough so as to defend yourself? Heck yes it is. It's a damn .357 Magnum revolver. Of course you can nail a guy with a Glock. In fact, if you are with the home advantage is not just for sports, it's for military tactics, it's for wars, it's for home defense as well. It's always the case that the guy defending in his own turf has the advantage. Doesn't mean you always win. Unfortunately, good people get hurt. but it's usually going to be that you have a significant advantage being you in your home turf, and if you hurt someone breaking in, you have your gun. Yes, even if it's a older 357 Magnum Python, it's still a damn 357 Magnum. Even if he broke in with his Glock or a rocket launcher, doesn't matter. You nail him a couple times with a 357 slug to the center of mass, he's gonna go down. He's likely not gonna get up anytime soon, okay? Usually in home invasions and self-defense scenarios, it's gonna be what, 3, 4, 5 rounds? Yes, if I can have more, even better. And yes, it is true that a quality premium brand 9mm will do the job just as well. But it's also true that 357 Magnum is quite a bit more powerful. And the first thing I would suggest is know how to work your gun. It's not the same thing shooting a Glock or semi-automatic as shooting a revolver. And yes, these are spent cases as you see. What I mean by this is here, okay, yeah, clear as you see. Here you just work the trigger in a certain way. You're more like pressing the trigger. Here you're more like, the word I would use is working the trigger. All right, you have of course single action, and you have, of course, double action. Double action is longer, double action needs to be worked. And given the ammo capacity that you have, it's more about a conscious placing of a shot where you want it rather than just dumping the barrel on someone, right? And again, 357 Magnum is a very decent round, especially with quality ammunition. Usually a round will get the job done. If you want to go with a double hammer, go with that, but working the trigger, that would be the first thing that I would advise. And there's a number of videos. I was watching some of the older training videos for law enforcement and the FBI and so on. I mean, at a time it was recommended to only use this in emergencies, and you would only use single action, right, as your main way of going for more accurate shots. Heck, by the way, if it's a longer shot and you have the time and you want to make sure you just, and especially like if you're hunting, right, and you have your target and you go with a nice single action, that is fantastic. But for what is self-defense, learn how to use the gun in double action, right? It's a longer pull, you work it each time, okay? Don't do this thing about hitting a wall and I'm hitting the wall. No, that's neither one of these guns. It's just about one consistent pull of the trigger depending on the firearm that you're working on here. But make no mistake, a 357 Magnum revolver is more than adequate for self-defense. In fact, in previous videos, I have recommended it, especially for people that don't have a huge amount of training, because the manual of arms is a lot more simple, it's a lot easier. There's things that can go wrong when using a semi-automatic pistol, which, as reliable as it is, and it's terribly reliable, is a lot more durable as well in terms of a fighting survival gun. Yeah, Glock all day long. But for someone that is not with that muscle memory of clearing malfunctions and so on, this is better. Is this faster for reloading? Of course. You cannot get a whole lot faster than that, but usually the rounds fired will be 3 or 4 in self-defense. Maybe that's gonna be it. Can you go against someone with a more modern gun? Of course. The famous GIGN intervention group operating in that case in the Air France hijacking, they went in with man-run 357 Magnum revolvers, and they nailed the guy with the AK-47, with the grenades, and in fact, one of the guys, the point man, nailed 2 terrorists with his 357 Magnum, and he got shot himself with an AK-47, and the round that was supposed to hit him hit his man-run revolver, which got destroyed in the process but kept him alive, and they all survived the encounter. All of the terrorists did not make it out alive. So there's something to be said about, even a revolver, and I insist, these days even GIGN goes with a Glock instead of the 357 Magnum revolver. But for home defense, this is perfectly adequate. Now, the things that you may want to start practicing yourself, not only pulling the trigger with, even better, go with snap caps, is how is it that you're going to be reloading? And there's different techniques and better videos on YouTube, and I would suggest going with that. The only thing I will say, though, is the traditional way, which is perfectly adequate. You want to go with I saw someone saying just, not hitting, just doing this. This is a horrible piece of advice. There's a video from someone that has a lot of experience and massive respect for that dude, but this is not how you work your extractor. What you want to do is a lot more of a more solid snap, because that's the way in which you ensure. Now, the way personally I go about this, and again, for me, this is what I train with. This is what I've been using for 20 years for my defensive needs. Let's put it that way. Now, if I had to use this, yes, I would use my support hand only, because I feel very comfortable with my level of dexterity with my left hand. For most right-handed people, yes, you change hands because you have more dexterity with this hand. Now, if you do have a little bit more dexterity, I like the idea of not letting go of my revolver. Meaning, what I would do personally is this. I have shot, I need to reload, I will open my revolver, I will push, pulling, positioning so as to have the best amount of gravity towards where I want to extract. I will give it a solid tap so as to eject all of those and not have them, because as you see, these are quite long, and there's a good chance that if I just pump it, it may end up getting caught under the star or whatnot. No, it's a solid pump. This gentleman was saying, oh, you're likely to bend. No, with any quality modern revolver, just a nice tap, unless you're doing something ridiculously, forceful, you're not going to be bending anything. These are pretty solid. In fact, something like this one, they have a nice solid, and yes, this is probably the best revolver in the planet, but look how massive and solid that thing is. You're not going to be bending anything. And this is a little bit more narrow, still strong enough. Just make sure you eject everything you want to eject, okay? And once you do that, once you ejected those empties, positioning it so as to have it pointing downwards with your speed loader, and what I do is using the finger of my trigger finger, just as it's not supposed to be right here, it's supposed to be outside the trigger guard. Well, since I'm doing that already, why not use it so as to keep this from spinning? So I'm reloading, putting it in that position, you reload, and that's it. You close your revolver and you're good to go. Practice this until it becomes second nature, until your muscle memory allows you to do this under a moment of stress. Revolvers are not the best if you have the reasonable amount of training. That's why they're not being used by professionals these days. But if you have this as your home defense weapon, and you practice and you train these things and you have the muscle memory for it, it is more than serviceable, more than likely to end up getting the job done if you ever need it. Guys, as always, I do recommend, again, especially if you don't have that training, which you definitely should have, but this will give you a nice foundation for your skills that you should eventually develop. And of course, Surviving the Economic Collapse, available in Amazon, and those links there below. Take care.